Welcome to the Wine Yogi. I'm your guide, Crystal, and I'm here to help you navigate your way through the wonderful world of wine and all its heady associates, craft beers, spirits, and gourmet foods, with the knowledge of a sommelier, the sometimes calm patience of a yoga instructor, and of course the wacky humor of a former Air Force pilot, stay-at-home mama, and a girl raised in the South. So let's get chatting about wine. Welcome to this episode of the Wine Yogi. So today we're going to be talking about something that may make some of you uncomfortable. It's certainly a topic discussed amongst my peer group. And it does relate to a podcast I did a few weeks ago about how to talk to your sommelier. So if you missed that podcast, go back and take a listen to that. If you are ever worried about the kinds of questions that you should ask your sommelier, what to expect in terms of helping them guide you to the proper wine, all of those kinds of things. That it's just a nice little easy way to help you break the ice with your sommelier, your wait staff, to make sure that you get to you select the best wine for you and for your dinner plans that evening. Well, today we're going to go on the flip side. These are the things you really shouldn't do at a wine tasting. And this it's not scientific, but the anecdotal evidence and experiences that I have had are what have inspired this particular podcast, because there are just certain things when I am pouring at a wine tasting that drive me absolutely insane. And I'm not alone in this. And I can laugh about it now, but for a very, very long time, these things frustrated me. And I would have to go and knock out a yoga practice just to let all of it go. Got to let that stuff go. These suggestions, and that is all that they are offerings to help you build better rapport with the staff, whether they're wine stewards, whether they are trained sommeliers, whether they're just distributors that are pouring. They will help you establish a great rapport with the staff, give you a little insight into what we deal with and why sometimes the staff may seem a little flustered, irritated. Maybe they are not in their friendly mood that you're used to. But a lot of things happen in wine tastings. And I just want to give you kind of a peek behind the curtain so that you can better understand why sometimes we aren't our happy, rosy-cheeked, thanks to wine selves. Because, just like with any group of people, we are human beings too. But these are actual things that have happened to me in the wine tastings. And I poured almost every weekend for 4 years. Here and there, some vacation times, but for the most part, 4 years. Starting with the first couple years was just every Saturday. And then after that, it became every Friday and Saturday. And I still pour periodically. And these stories, these suggestions all stem from my own personal experiences as well as the experiences of my friends. And so let's get chatting about what not to do at your wine tasting. So first of all, let's just establish that depending on where you live, wine tastings can either be complimentary, you can pay for them, or it may be a combination where you can go in for a complimentary wine tasting and then purchase either further, samples of wine. Every place is different. That's rule number one. You need to understand that. Just because you go into a wine store that is beautifully decorated and has a bar at it as part of the tasting experience, it is not a bar. Most retail stores are not licensed to sell by the glass. Now, that can be different depending on where you are. Some places it's allowed by law that they can hold both licenses, so they can not only sell you a bottle of wine, they can sell you a glass of wine. But My experience is in the city that I live in, for the longest time, we could only pour on Saturdays, for example. We still had blue laws that prohibited when we could pour, how long we could pour, and there's still a blue law on there. You can't pour on on Sundays. So that's why for the first couple of years, I only poured on Saturdays. That law did get changed thanks to some clients that had connections on city council, and they brought this to the city council's attention. And it was just one of those antiquated laws that people had forgotten about. But I can't tell you how many times we get asked, okay, that was lovely. I'd like a glass of that. And we have to explain, I'm sorry, we are a liquor store. We cannot sell by the glass. By law, you get 4 1-ounce pours. No more, no less. And that's all we're authorized to give you. And I've had people actually get very angry at me, take it out on me as if I'm the one that created this law, and get so upset that they storm out. I am not exaggerating, so mad after their complimentary wine tasting that they could not buy a glass. They could go buy the bottle. And to be quite honest, it usually happens with the store I work at. We have this deal. It's 6 for $60. We have over 300 wines on this deal where you can buy 6 bottles off of the 6 for $60 for $60, for $60. Sorry, I just lost my voice there a little bit. And so to have somebody get that angry and upset at just the hired hand pouring some wine after they've drank free samples, we always provide a little cheese board that we pair the cheeses and the wines. So they've had a little free high-end snack because the cheeses are not inexpensive. They've gotten that mad. And then they've gone onto social media and written us up, of course, that we're a terrible store. And they don't provide any of the reasons why we're a terrible store, just that the staff is rude. So the next time you are going to a tasting, find out if it is a liquor store that has a specific license that is only allowed to do pours. If you find a wine you like and you know that you can't buy a glass, just go buy the bottle. Go home and enjoy it at home. But please, if they tell you, I'm sorry, we cannot sell by the glass, don't take it out on them. They didn't come up with that rule. If you're fortunate enough to live where you can pay for the wine tastings, then usually that also allows for slightly bigger pours. It also they may be legally bound by how much they can pour. Everywhere is different. So go in with that knowledge that just because you come from, we'll say California, where you can pay for, another tasting. They have cork laws there too, where you can take your own bottle of wine into restaurants and you pay $25 and they open it for you so that you can have it with dinner. We don't have that in our state. I live in Colorado. It's slowly becoming California, but it hasn't advanced that far yet. So we're still pretty antiquated with our liquor laws here. We can sell marijuana for recreational use, but yes, some of the laws on the books for the state of Colorado as it applies to alcohol are still pretty restrictive. So that suggestion brings me to my second suggestion and offering. If the wait staff or the server or the sommelier or whoever it is that's pouring for you at your wine tasting has a spiel, don't take that out on them either and write them up for that. Because when you have people come into an establishment that are new repeatedly, day in, day out, weekend after weekend, month after month, year after year, and you are repeating the law, it is the law. So if it sounds like I have a spiel, it's because I do. So when you sit down, for example, at the wine tasting that I help out at, and you've never been in before, I'll explain how things go. on this particular, and I'm going to give you my spiel right now because I've said it a million times. So we have 6 wines on today's tasting. We have 2 whites and 4 reds. By law, you get 4 1-ounce pours. And I suggest you start at the top of the page and kind of look at where you would like to go and then work your way down as you select your 4. And yes, I got written up for that. So please don't go flame your sommeliers because they have a spiel. That same lady complained that I talk too fast, which is something my mother has been trying to cure me of for now 47 years. I'm 48, so we'll say 47 years. Mandy has tried to help me with that. Lori Lynn, who does the Mouthful podcast here at Ladies Chit Chat Club, has suggested I slow down, but it is who I am. I talk fast. And so, yes, I have a spiel. I really have a spiel when I'm busy, and I will go through that spiel even quicker. So listen up. If the room is crowded, that's probably not the time to, take a moment to ask the sommelier the most intricate questions around. Now, if my spiel went too fast for you, just verify. 4 1-ounce pours. Okay, I see what we have here on the list because at our wine tasting, we actually provide wine tasting notes. And then if you still don't understand, then maybe when we circle back and we're bringing you glasses and a cheese board, then that's it. That's a good time to always ask. But please don't take it out on your sommelier if they have a spiel. It's because they've probably said it a number of times. And I had at that point. She also wrote up one of the young sommeliers that worked there that is an introvert because he didn't make eye contact. And so she was having a rough day. So I did mention 4 1-ounce pours. So that's another thing that you must be aware of. And again, don't take that out on your staff. So likewise, since you in some places are not necessarily allowed to buy by the glass because of licensing, especially if it's a retail liquor store, for example, in the case of where I work. Don't get upset if you didn't taste if you forgot what you were tasting and you go back and ask for another pour, but you've already had your 4, for example. So if wherever you're at, if they are limited by law, by what they can pour, they are limited by law. And in the case of when you start getting into alcohol law, you start getting into felonies. So, pouring for someone underage, for example, felony. And so it's not very kind to put your sommelier or your wine steward or just the staff on the spot because you can't remember what you liked. Or maybe you were sharing with your significant other, just technically in Colorado against the law as well. But what you do when I step away from your glass is what you do. So if your spouse or significant other or friend chugged it, because 1 ounce seems like a lot in the glass, but it's really not very much. You can make it linger. But if someone is just kind of not paying attention, you can throw it back pretty quickly too. And so if they drank it all, I'm sorry. I'm allowed to pour you 4 1-ounce pours by law. And I've had people yell at me, go complain to the owner, get on social media and give us 1 star because we wouldn't break the law for them. So it is frustrating. I think what gets under my skin probably the most is people will watch me as I'm preparing for the wine tasting, and they'll see me taste everything that's on the tasting. Well, you got to taste everything. Yes, because I'm staff and I'm pouring, and you would like to have my opinion. And so I can't just go based off of what the wine producer and their marketing campaign staff came up with that is on your wine notes. So if you want my honest assessment of your wine, I have to smell it and I have to taste it. Not like your wine in your glass, but the wine that we're pouring. So just understand that if your wine tasting is constrained by legal issues, whether it's how many pours you get, the size of those pours, purchasing, all of those kinds of things, please just understand that it's not us coming up with these outrageous and seemingly ridiculous rules. It is also, I think, kind of, and I hate to say this, but impolite to ask for more free wine. It costs the owner of that store or the winery or the distillery, it costs them money when you keep going back and asking for more because it's free. Now, if you're paying for it, horse of another color. But if it's a complimentary tasting, bear that in mind as well. That when you allow your kid to eat all the cheese off of your board and then you didn't get to have any of the cheese or the charcuterie that was offered as a complimentary pairing with your wine tasting, if you ate it all quickly before you even had your first glass poured, or like I said, I've seen people bring their kids, yes, even infants, and they sit at a bar. It isn't, maybe get a babysitter for a few moments. Anyway, or skip the wine tasting, just run in, get a bottle. It looks very odd. I've had people breastfeeding at a tasting too. It's strange what some people will do, but But going back to the cheese boards, I've sat there and I've had people ask for cheese boards for their kids. And, if we're slow and the weekend has been slow and we've got the, cheese boards, I totally don't mind. If it's somebody that I know is just looking for their, I call them moochers. And yes, I know who you are. Because I will sit there and watch you walk out of the store after you come in for your free wine and cheese. So there are plenty of people that I say no to. There are a lot of people I say yes to because they've established that relationship with me. I know that they're regular customers. I know that they have a vested interest in the success of the business. And so when I provide them with a little extra cheese or another little sample, it's because I know that they're now going to turn around and probably go out and spend money in the business. And so that brings me to my next suggestion. If you want to establish that relationship, don't be a moocher. Don't go in and just drink the free wine, treat it as a social happy hour before you go out with your friends. And also, if you're coming in to do that, and I know you're coming in to do that because I recognize you. If I know what you like to drink when you come and sit in the tasting area of the store that I work at, I pretty much know your spending habits too. So if you are that kind of person and it upsets you that I won't bring you any extra cheese and you're going to go complain about it, maybe spend some money in the store. And then eventually you'll establish yourself as an actual customer, not just someone coming in taking advantage of the owner's generosity of offering complimentary wine and cheese tastings. So it's and I've had people complain to me about, and they get mad and very upset. And not just to me, to my peers, because there's a limited amount of product. And so if you hoover all your cheese in, that's not really my problem. I hope that makes sense. And I'm sorry if that kind of statement offends you. I really am. But these things cost people money. And if it was your business, you would want people that are enjoying the tasting to then come out and spend money in the store. That's kind of the point. The tasting brings people in, gives you an idea. You get to try before you buy, and then you get to go out and support a small business or a large business if it's a big winery or something like that. But it's, especially since in our case, it's all complimentary. We make no money off of the actual tasting itself. When people come in and just use it as a meetup point. We'll go have some drinks. It's free. And then, we'll start our evening from there. That impacts us negatively. It takes up the staff's time. And some of the worst violators of this are also the most, how do I put this? They are the ones that will trap us and talk our ears off, asking us questions and things like that, because that's part of in some circles, that's their social meetup. And so they want to pick our brains. And so, if you think about it from the business side of things, someone who's being paid $17 an hour is spending 45 minutes to an hour on people who are consuming, and we've had large groups like this, and not a single one of them buys anything. But they will try to, kind of have us talk through everything, how grapes are grown and after the earth cooled and the dinosaurs came and then grapes were planted. But they do try to kind of capture us as an audience and then want more cheese. We'd like to revisit this, and it puts us in a bind. But so your business owner is kind of wasting a lot of money on folks who then, when they're done, leave. And that's going to bring me to our next pet peeve. When you are done, leave. This is not the time to just continue to linger and have conversations with people you just met. It is a business, and you sitting there, they're taking up space. So if nobody else is waiting, we don't care. But if you see that people are waiting to come in to taste, it's crowded, it's packed, the staff is running around with their heads cut off like chickens, you need to get up and leave. Please don't make me come over and ask you to leave. Now, I became a pro at it, but the first time I did that, the owner, who's so empathic and so sensitive, she was mortified. But we had to do it because we had 20 people waiting to come into a relatively small tasting room to taste. And so it becomes an issue of that balance on the part of the staff to politely ask someone to get up and leave so that other people don't get mad at us because it's too busy and they can't get in to taste. So once you're done tasting, please, wrap up the conversation as you're kind of finishing up that last, bit of the tasting. And unless, there's nobody waiting to come in and the place is empty and dead, we don't care at that point. But if we are trying to close, so our tastings end at 7, I can't tell you how many times I've kicked people out because they think that they can just linger and keep, they'll roll in. Literally, I've had people roll in at 6:58 wanting to taste. I'm like, you're going to get one pour and that's it. Because at 7, I'm done. Because at 7, I have to start cleaning up. The store closes at 7:30. And I have been there all day. I'm tired. And so rolling in at 6:58 when the tasting ends at 7, bad form. And then to sit there and keep talking. And the reason why you're not going to get your next pour is because you've been running off chit-chatting, being social, instead of power tasting. If you come in late, power taste, talk later, outside, not in my tasting room. I'm going to start cleaning up around you. And it happens every weekend without fail. Friday night and Saturday night. People will roll in at the last minute and then get very upset when we don't accommodate their expectations of, service on demand. I know that the customer is always right is a popular phrase. And to some extent in the service industry, I would say yes, but if you are disrespectful of the business establishment itself, if you're disrespectful of your staff by doing things like that, I'm sorry, you are not right. It's a complimentary tasting. Please honor it as a complimentary gift. It is a gift. And it's a great opportunity to try wine before you select a bottle that you can then take home and enjoy. It's a great opportunity to try cheese that maybe you've never had before. And it's a great opportunity to bring the two together. So make sure that if you notice there's a lot of people around, that you are wrapping things up and you don't continue to sit there and linger. You're welcome to move out into the store to continue the conversation, that way. But maybe make plans to go meet up at a restaurant, a local restaurant, and go support another small business at that point. Or, exchange numbers, whatever it is. So that brings me to another point. Please don't treat this as a bar where you can get super, super loud and scream and hoot and holler. And I'm a very loud person. And yes, there have been moments where friends have come in and I'm excited to see them. And there have been times where we've had on St. Paddy's Day, we've done some Irish drinking songs, and that can get fun too. But in general, it's not your home. You don't need to come in and literally yell from one corner of the tasting room out into the store itself. Has happened. You don't need to get so loud with your laughter and conversations that people then complain to the staff to tell you to pipe it down. I've had that happen. And it disrespects the staff that is trying to maybe explain to other folks that are new to wine, or maybe they're new to the store or new to the winery or distillery, how a wine tasting should go or what they should expect, what they should look for. And if you're an old hat at it, that's one thing, and you don't need that, help. A lot of folks do need that help. And the louder it gets, the harder it is on the staff to do their jobs. And that's a lot of times when we just start pouring. Because when people get that loud and obnoxious, all of us have lost our voice at some point because you're trying to talk over that din and do your spiel 50, 60, 70 times in a couple of hour span. But when we get slammed like that, super busy, and it gets super loud in there, it is extremely difficult to communicate, especially with people who are new. So keep the volume down to a low murmur. And then that way everybody can enjoy their experience. So finally, just a few other hints, tips, suggestions, and offerings. So all of these things that I've just described, I've had happen in the exact same day, multiple times. And I've had people complain about us because we took glasses away from visitors that claimed they did not speak English, that were giving their 1-year-old grandson a sip of wine. It is against the law. Remember, I said felony. And so we can deny service to anybody. We don't have to sell you alcohol either if you come into the store. By law, if you smell of marijuana, we're not supposed to sell you any alcohol, whether that's beer, wine, or spirits. If you smell of marijuana, by law, we are not supposed to pour for you. If you are clearly intoxicated, we can deny service. So whether you are stoned or drunk or whatever, high on whatever else it is, we can refuse service. Don't get mad at us. You chose to come into the store under the influence. It's for your own safety and for the liability issues of the store itself. And we're following and obeying the law. I've had people come in open carrying. Here in Colorado, open carry is a law. So I've had one gentleman who also smokes. And yes, I know he smokes marijuana because he has a reefer cloud around him. He smells of marijuana, but he open carries as well. So he has come into the tasting under the influence, carrying a weapon, and that is against the law. And so I've had to ask him to, and he's actually a pretty nice guy, very laid back. It's probably the marijuana makes him laid back. So he was totally understanding. He got up and he went and he secured his gun elsewhere. I don't know what he did with it, but that's not my problem. He was off of our premise when he secured his weapon somewhere else. But when we refuse service to you for whatever reason. Maybe you are being loud and obnoxious and it's becoming visibly apparent that you are under the influence of something else other than just your 2 1-ounce pours that you've enjoyed already. That's not the time to get angry. The law is on our side. But all of these things happen. And people, when they get angry, get very rude. I had one lady who was trying to hit on the son, who his wife is sitting right there, but apparently she didn't speak English either. So the one person who spoke English was talking to an older lady who was upset that when the grandparents gave the grandson a sip of wine out of grandpère's glass, that we took their glasses from them. And I'm like, well, that's against the law. You can do whatever you want at home, and I don't object to that at all. But you can't do it here. So she complained, and I think it was mainly because they got up and left, and then she was no longer able to talk to the good-looking son, whose wife was sitting right there with the 1-year-old. But whatever. So I've had that complaint filed against me. But just what I'm just trying to offer is, please understand that if we're not smiling, if we're not taking 5-10 minutes to walk you through things, if we just seem like we are just pouring wine, it's probably because we've reached kind of that breaking point. And even if it's not busy, when you come into the store, you could have just missed when we always talk about the tour bus pulls up and it kicks out all the tourists and they flood in, and it's sheer chaos for that half an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours. And then they all get back on the tour bus and leave. And you just happen to come in right when it's empty. But we have been run over by that tour bus. And then they've thrown it in reverse, backed up, run us down again repeatedly. So sometimes the staff, it can get very overwhelming. And then especially when people lay into you and get upset because you've asked them, to please, continue their conversation. Out in the store, we have folks waiting to taste. No, I'm sorry. I can only pour you 4 1-ounce pours. No, I'm sorry. This is not a bar. We do not sell by the glass, but you're welcome to go purchase a bottle of this wine. It's on our 6 for $60. You'll get it at that $10 price. See how my spiel just kind of rolls off the tongue? I've said this once or twice. But just understand that we are humans too. And maybe just think about if you had to deal with this every time you went to work, day in and day out. And when you go in wanting to share a wine with people and then they get upset over a free wine tasting. I actually have glasses that say, drink your effing wine, because it's just, take it for what it is. Enjoy your complimentary wine. Enjoy the cheese. And let it go. It's really not worth the time and effort to make an ass out of yourself, because that's what most of these folks look like when they do it, because it is people that do not shop there, do not spend their money out in the store. And I had one lady come in. It's my last story that I'll share with you, and then I'll wrap it up. I had one of our regular clients come in. Her husband had just passed away that week. She came in. She is a particular type of wine drinker. I know her well. She does spend money there in the store, so I always do my best to take care of her. But we were very busy on that one day. There was just 2 of us. This is when we had we had just expanded our tasting room. And it was my first weekend of yoga teacher training. And we were slammed. I mean, there was just 2 of us. It was a lot for us to grasp. And I don't even recall if I even said hello, because I was exhausted at this point when they came in. She and her friends typically come in later in the afternoon, usually a little after 5. See, and I know that too. But I did not have the time to sit and chat. And I don't know what or if I said anything. Don't recall. can't put my finger on it. But her husband had died that week, had passed away that week. And she came in to the tasting with her friend. And then I got a text later that night saying, hey, what happened with such and such? I don't know. They came in, I poured them wine, and I think, my partner was pouring for them. Honestly, I can't remember. I know I gave him glasses. I can't remember if I poured wine for them or not. I may have gone over to her with her to start her because I know what wines she drinks. And so I got this text though, well, her husband just died. And the friend came back in and said that was the worst experience she'd ever had there. And that, they know that you can get really busy. But the next time you see her, give her a hug, 'cause she's been crying all night. And I felt horrible that I had added to this woman's pain in any way. And it really wasn't until and it was the next day I did not sleep at all that night. I felt awful. I ruminated on it, trying to remember, what did I say? Did I say anything? Did I pour wine? I can't even remember. And my partner's like, I think I poured for them. And because I gave my notice right after that, I went on that Monday, I'm like, I'm done. I can't work here anymore. Because if that is what is expected of me, I can't do that. That's just too much on me. And my yoga mentor, because that was the first yoga practice, I'm in downward facing dog. And oftentimes you hear people talk about emotional release once they hit the mat. And all of a sudden and I hadn't cried at this point, because I'm not that kind. I cry at sappy movies and commercials. But when it's dealing with my own emotion, no. My own life events, no. I tend to hold it in. All of a sudden, though, I'm in downward facing dog and a big plop lands on my mat. I'm like, what in the hell is that? And then I realized I'm crying, and I cried the rest of the day. I mean, it was ugly crying too. And my mentor, once I was ready to kind of talk about it, she's like, well, you know that that's not on you. Did you on purpose try to hurt her? Were you just going about your day unaware that she had had this great loss? And if you had known she had just suffered this loss, would it have changed how you interacted? And of course it would have. Of course it would have. The next time I actually saw her, I was able to go give her a hug and express my condolences, convey my sincerest sympathies for her loss. And that helped me realize something, that in my yoga practice, that people bring their own crap to their mat, to a class that they're attending, to a wine tasting, to their interactions with other human beings. I'm guilty of it too. I've had a bad day. I take it out on, whoever wasn't quick enough getting me. Yeah, I try not to. I really do now. But I raise my hand. I am guilty of it too. I don't go out on social media and then start flaming. That takes a lot for me to do that. And I've only done that once or twice. And I usually try to offer, when I'm providing a review of a restaurant, for example, here are the pros. And then, at least offer some positive assessment if that's available. Sometimes it's not, but usually I do try to do that. But what I realized, though, is that some folks come to depend on, they see us as kind of like bartenders. They know us. They share things with us. So I just, just remember we're humans too. And even if you have come to know us because you see us every week, you're a frequent customer, we don't know everything going on in your lives. So maybe be considerate of that. And it took me a while to get over that because I felt horrible. And it was one of those things where I did not want to go back in and work there anymore. And I literally went in on Monday morning and gave my notice because I just couldn't do it anymore. Thankfully, I stayed for a little bit longer, made another amazing friendship when she hired somebody else. And so, I kind of see that as the universe balancing out that awful weekend of remorse and guilt over something I have no idea what I did, and I could not fix it. And that drove me insane. But it allowed another friendship to be discovered and happen and come into my life. And for that, I will be eternally grateful for that experience. So I had to, what I am trying to wrap this up into is I don't know what I did or said, and I may not have said anything, and that may have been the problem. But if you come in and your staff that you're used to seeing, if they are not as chatty, not smiling, not laughing, there might be a reason why. Maybe they're under the weather. Maybe they've had a long day because they have just been abused nonstop. So just bear that in mind, and maybe see how they're doing and ask them how their day has gone. And I tell you what, there have been times when people have actually, well, how's everything going? Well, let me tell you. And then you could be the counselor for a brief moment and let us get some things off of our chest. Because especially if we know you, we'll share. We'll dish. I will anyway. Oh my God, you should have been here earlier. This is what happened. This dude was yelling literally from this spot in the tasting room out into the store at a dude who was walking outside. It was loud in here. I couldn't even hear myself think. So, who knows what you'll hear. And then finally, we get asked this all the time too. Don't ask me what I'm drinking. Don't ask me what's in my glass. First of all, you might not like the answer because I'm not going to give you any. Second of all, you may not want to know what my favorite wine is on the tasting because it may be none of them, especially if they're from Lodi. I've been in a tasting where they literally were all from Lodi and had to bite my tongue because a lady was in there with her daughters, and she was from California. She was upset that she could not buy a glass of wine. So again, she was mad at me about that. And then she went on to say, just love all this wine from Lodi. So I had to school my face and not express my true opinions on that particular place and their wine. It's the lavender. I'm sorry, Lodi winemakers and Lodi wine enthusiasts. It's a lavender thing, and it permeates my taste buds, and I can't get it out of my nose or my mouth. And I'm not the only one that has that issue with Lodi. But you may, unless I know you really well, and I know what you like, I will wave you off of things. That is definitely true. But if you are new to a store and you don't know the person standing behind the counter pouring, don't put them on that spot. You don't know what they're tasting, what's in their glass. It may be a wine that is new to the store that the staff needs to taste. Yes, we taste the wines that we then sell. That happens. It's part of being a knowledgeable staff. And so if you have that expectation of people that don't taste, just go to your random liquor store, or go to the grocery store. If your grocery stores sell wine and spirits, that's a place where the staff does not taste. If you go to a boutique wine shop like the one that I work at here in Colorado Springs, I'll give a nice shameless shout out and plug the Wine Gallery. Our complimentary tastings are Friday and Saturdays from 2 to 7. We're right off of Rock Rimmon in Delmonico, next to Mateo's Day Spa and Salon and New Day Cafe. So come say hello. But yes, that is, it puts us on the spot because usually, unless there's something that's just popping on the tasting, if I have wine in my glass, it is usually something that is new to the store. It's one of the higher end wines that will, as a staff, will split so that we can, again, better appreciate the wine and speak knowledgeably about it when people ask us about it. And that's the kind of service that you get in our store. We're all sommeliers or wine enthusiasts that have been around wine for quite a while and are knowledgeable about wine. And so that's one of the benefits of going to a boutique wine shop, such as the one that I work at. Same thing with the cheeses. Everybody on staff, even if they don't like, say, blue cheese, have tried all the cheeses, and they may taste it and go, I still don't like blue cheese. Or like last weekend, I got a phone call from the staff because they'd opened up an English style cheddar that was a combination with blue cheese. And he's like, it's really got this ammonia smell to it. What's going on? I was like, well, it's gone bad. So you need to wrap it back up, open up another package and see if it's the entire batch that you just got in. And if so, you need to send it back. And it's just one of those things, though, that we need to experience what it is we're selling you. That way we are serving you in our best capacity. And what better way than to look at a trusted, whether it's the manager of the store, he has his own set of groupies that only buy from him because he knows their palates and he knows what they like. But even if you come in and he's not there and you say, well, he suggested this wine to me and I really like it. As soon as you point out that wine that he suggested to you, I know where your palate's at, and I can start picking things that are going to line up with your palate and what you like to experience. So don't ask us what's in our glass. You don't want to know that answer. And no, we're not going to share, because if it's not on the tasting, we're not pouring it for you. It's just, it's one of those pesky little laws again. So I think that wraps it up. I mean, wow, I went a lot longer than I expected, but I had to get that off my chest. And so hopefully I hope this wasn't you. Was this you? No, it wasn't you. So be kind to your wine staff, whether it's a sommelier, waiter, waitress, wine steward, or even just your local wine store staff. And definitely support those local businesses, those small businesses that are out there doing hard work. Shop there, buy there, drink there. So if you've got a brewery in town or a distillery, boutique wine shop, vineyard, winery, whatever you have going on, please take a look at your small businesses. I work for two small business owners, ladies that are absolutely wonderful. And it means a lot when you support their business, because otherwise, if we don't, we'll be left with those really big box stores and probably left with just buying box wine, probably White Zinfandel. And you know how that upsets me. And that White Zin is probably from Lodi. And we would not like that. You would not like to see me angry, because that would make me very, very angry. I would turn into a big green monster at that point, probably. Anyway. So, but do support and shop local. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, cheers and namaste. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Wine Yogi. To hear more episodes from this podcast or other podcasts at the Ladies Chit Chat Club, please be sure to check us out at ladieschitchatclub.com. You can also find us on the iHeartRadio app, iTunes, and Spotify. Ladies Chit Chat Club also now has its own app, so be sure to go and download it to your phone today. Until next time, cheers and namaste.